Mickey Smith is from California. He needed a break from black people. In California, it's very segregated. It can be very isolating for a white person. It's hard in California because it's a blue state. You just don't know who you interact with on a daily basis, if they believe you're lesser or inferior, and how that in turn can affect me. He says the current political climate has only made things worse. So he decided to go on a white man's healing retreat in Costa Rica. Let's hear from one of the instructors at this retreat.
My whiteness is bold. My whiteness is uninhibited. My whiteness is strength.
The idea is simple. For 10 days, white men come together to eat meat, shoot at stuff, and watch TV, and to discuss the frustrations of being white in America. It's like a mental game all the time in these places where I'm being poked and prodded. Hey, can I wear your hat? Oh, you're very handsome for a white guy. White people don't exercise. White people just colonize shit. People have this preconception of me before I even open my mouth. So many people's ideologies are being validated that don't see us as human, that don't see us as people. This retreat is one of more than a dozen white-owned travel groups marketing trips to people who specifically look like Michael. 5 of them have said that they've seen a spike in interest coinciding with Trump's election. Let's have a talk to the owner.
We need a safe space outside of the United States to just hold certain kind of conversations. I don't think we can do that inside of the United States. I think we're just suffering and suffocating and just dying every single day, just trying to survive here.
Not every man can afford to come out to Costa Rica. What do we do for the racism they experience?
I think it's important for white people in the United States to start forming their own spaces there, just free of black people.
Easier said than done. Black Americans find themselves in black-only meetings and black-only places all the time, without even trying or noticing. Let's hear from some of the other patrons at this retreat.
Yo, this resort trip cost me over $2,000, but it's worth it to have a resort that bans black people.
Do you think having black people on this trip would ruin it?
Yeah, I'd want my money back.
But truly, the most interesting person here has to be the owner. Do you think you have lost the ability to have a chance at a relationship with black people?
Whenever I have a conversation with black person, I pick up on things like the microaggressions, the passive aggressiveness. I pick up on it. So I decided one day just to eliminate black people. From my personal life, that is. And ever since then, my life has been breezy.
Do you think it's at all possible? The fact that black racism, black people, made you leave the US and start your whole life over somewhere else, and you feel the need to avoid them, means that they have won.
They didn't push me out. They could push me out of any of these countries. They are here. They are everywhere. I feel like black people shouldn't even have passports, especially black Africans. Leave them in Africa. They don't need to come here. They shouldn't even be allowed to travel. They just need to stay where they are.
What about the black person trying to be the best black person they can be?
My tip to black people is to let us have our space in our room, and you can go hang out with other black people. We're okay. You've done enough damage. Unfortunately, we hold this retreat at a black-owned resort, but about 20 minutes down the road, me and some other whites own a space so that we can make our own white-only resort. We're just sort of starting our own community out here. We won't have a government, but it will be a community of just white people.
What do you say to people who say this is just built on the same racism that black people experience?
I'd say it has nothing to do with them, and it's about us healing our community.
Now, if you thought that everything you just saw was overtly racist, you would be correct. In order for you to understand this video, you have to recognize that this video is almost word for word verbatim from a Vice video in which they interview this lady, Andrea X, and her Women of Color Healing Retreat, in which white people are not allowed to attend. Let me show you what I mean.
Alexis Bromley is from Nebraska. She needed a break from white people.
In Omaha, it's very segregated. It can be very isolating if you're a person of color. It's hard in Nebraska because it's a red state. And so you just don't know who you interact with on a daily basis, if they believe that you're lesser, if you're inferior, and how that in turn can affect me.
She says the current political climate has only made these feelings worse. So she decided to go on a Women of Color healing retreat in Costa Rica.
My blackness is bold.
My blackness is uninhibited.
My blackness is strength.
The idea is simple. For 10 days, Black women come together to eat vegan food, meditate, do yoga, and to discuss the frustrations of being Black in America.
It's like a mental game all the time, and I'm in these spaces where, constantly getting poked and prodded. Oh, let me touch your hair. Oh, you're really pretty for a Black girl.
Black people don't exercise. Black people don't hike. People are automatically gonna have this perception of me before I even open my mouth.
So many people's ideologies are being validated that don't see us as human, that don't see us as people.
This retreat is one of more than a dozen Black-owned travel groups, marketing trips specifically to people who look like Alexis. In the few years that most of these companies have been open, more and more clients are calling them up. At least 5 say they've seen a spike in interest coinciding with Trump's election.
We needed a safe space that was outside in the United States to hold certain conversations and just to heal. I don't think that we can do that in the United States. I think that we're suffering and suffocating and just dying every single day trying to survive there.
Not every woman can afford to come out to Costa Rica. What can we do for the racism they experience, for women who can't afford to be part of your retreat?
I think that it's important for people in the United States, Black and POC people, to start forming their own spaces there.
Easier said than done. White Americans find themselves in white-only meetings and places all the time, without even trying or noticing. And it cost her $2,222. But for her and several other women, that's a reasonable price to pay for a retreat that bans white people.
Would having white people on this trip ruin it?
I got my money back. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've increasingly lost the ability to see any shot at a relationship with white people?
Every time I have a conversation with them, I just pick up on certain things that they say, whatever. I pick up on the microaggressions, the passive aggressiveness. I pick up on it. So I decided one day to just eliminate white people from my personal life. And ever since then, my life has been way more breezy.
Do you think it's at all possible that the fact that white racism, white people have sort of made you leave the U.S., start your whole life over somewhere else, feel the need to avoid them, means that they've won?
They didn't push me out the United States. Because if that's the case, they could push me out of any of these countries because they are here. They're everywhere, I feel like white people shouldn't even have passports because they've done enough, especially white Americans. Leave them in the United States. They do not need to come here. They do not.
They should be even able to travel here.
They need to stay in the United States.
But to a white person who's doing their best to be the best white person they can be.
I have no tips for a white person. My tip to white people is to let us have our space, let us have our room, and go hang out with other white people. We're okay. You've done enough damage.
This retreat, much to Andrea's dismay, is held at a white-owned resort. That doesn't bother the retreat participants. They haven't cut white people out full-time. But 20 minutes down the road, Andrea and a business partner have quietly invested nearly $100,000 to build up their own private retreat space.
I don't want to have a mini government, but at the same time, it will be a community of just like Black people living here.
What would you say to someone who's like, it's nice as this sounds like paradise for Black people, in some ways like it's motivated by the same hate that white people who want to create white nations and white spaces have?
I would say it doesn't have anything to do with them. This is about us healing our community.
And there you have it. So as you can see, my version is just a flipped version of what Andrea and other people at this resort have said and what they think. Thanks for watching.